What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, NVIDIA, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening to the economic calendar thus far, as we have very important data coming out, such as the PPI report and jobs numbers. I'm also going to talk about some charts and what they're suggesting thus far. But before I break into all this information, before I talk about why tomorrow is going to be another very important day, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and the offer ends very soon. Anyways, when it comes to SPY, I just wanted to mention that we had a very, very interesting day. SPY basically traded sideways for almost the entire day, range bound. We had one little instance where it dropped at the end before coming back up. And overall, it's still back up, trying to push a little bit in the after hours, still kind of stuck and indecisive. And the reason why it's moving like this is because we have some important data coming out. I'm going to talk about that first before I break down these charts. So what data is coming out tomorrow is going to be Thursday, March 14th, and we have some important stuff. At 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, an hour before the market opens, we have the PPI data report. We have core PPI coming out, not to mention the jobs numbers. It's going to be very important. So for PPI, okay, and this is a leading indicator for CPI. We want this to be aligned with expectations. We want PPI to be around year over year at 1%. The forecast is 0.9%, with the consensus is at 1.1%. So somewhere in between, around 1% or anywhere around that is going to be completely fine. So we'll be watching for that very, very carefully. And then when it comes to core PPI, this is for year over year right here. We want this to be around 2% to 1.9%, around 2% or so, the same as before. If it's harder than that, that's going to be a little bit more bearish for the markets. If it's below that, it's going to be completely fine. For core PPI month over month, we want this to be around 0.2 to 0.3%, showing more signs of contraction. If it's a little bit hot, it's not going to be the best of signs. And then for PPI month over month, we want this to be around 0.3%. Once again, don't want that to be too hot or too too much worse than expected. With that being said, we'll be watching PPI. The reason why it's so important is because PPI is wholesale inflation. It's a leading indicator for CPI, so CPI tends to follow this, and it's very important for the Fed's policies. Excuse me. On top of this, we also have the jobs numbers coming out. We have initial jobless claims coming out tomorrow. We want this to be between 218 and 219,000. So we're going to be watching to see if we get something just like that. And also for continuing jobless claims, we want this to be around 1.9 million. So we'll see what we end up getting. Initial jobless claims is going to be very important alongside PPI, and we'll see what happens. Later on, as the day progresses, at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the 4-week and 8-week bill auctions coming out, not to mention some mortgage data around noon. But all of that's very, very minor compared to PPI, so watch and see what that causes. For earnings, I was looking at them. I didn't really see anything too crazy for after the market closed today. We just have a few others like Leonard, and just nothing too crazy so I'm not gonna really talk too much about these. I'm gonna focus more on other things. For tomorrow, however, we have Dollar General, Dick's Sporting Goods, and we also have Adobe after the market closes. So I'll talk more about those tomorrow, but nothing's too crazy for earnings for today. Right now, there's a 99% chance that the Fed is going to keep rates the same during the next FOMC meeting, which is in exactly 1 week from now. I believe that's going to be expected, but the question is, what is the Fed going to forecast? Are they going to forecast the fact that they're going to cut rates more? Are they going to be giving us less cuts than before? Right now, there is a risk of inflation because so far the CPI numbers were a little bit on the hotter end of the spectrum. We also saw a CPI increase month over month, so a little bit hotter than expected. So we want to be very, very careful with that. With CPI going up compared to the previous month during the report from yesterday, the Fed could have a different view, and they may not cut as much as what we initially expected. So we'll just have to wait and see how this goes. Right now, for the fear and greed index, we're still at greed. Other indicators are still at their extreme greeds. But the VIX is now very indecisive. It's stuck at the 50 daily moving average. So we're going to be watching to see if we get a bounce on the VIX or not. And that's going to depend on PPI. Now, I'm going to be honest with you all. I am not a fortune teller, and I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow to the markets. That's my honest opinion. And anyone who comes out tomorrow or today and they start saying, I know what's going to happen like right before we get PPI, they're going to be lying to you because we can't truly say anything with 100% certainty until we see the data. That is my honest assessment. I know you may not want to hear that, but this is a very special case where the market's about to react to data. And I say that because the charts looks very, very indecisive for some tickers. Now, for other tickers like Tesla, they are showing some weakness. So I will show you guys what the charts look like. I will still break down technicals, but I just want to say that when it comes to predictions, I can't really give you guys a high conviction prediction because it all depends on the data. So SPY is looking a little bit indecisive right now. We had this drop right here. You could interpret this as a liquidity grab, or you could be looking at this as something completely different. We traded flat for almost the entire day. If we're bearish, we're going to be watching for a retracement towards 514.5. If we lose that, a bigger drop is coming to 512. If we're bullish, you want to see SPY basically break past 517, 517.5. If we break that, 518.2 is coming, followed by the 519 to 520 area. What do I think is going to happen? Well, honestly, guys, it looks very indecisive. I am kind of suspicious over the fact that we got this little drop and a bounce back up. Could this be a liquidity grab? Could they be buying up shares down here because they're getting ready to push this higher? It's a real possibility. Also, the last times we got CPI, PPI, or any kind of data like that, the market has pumped. Even on the JOLTS job openings numbers, the market just loves to pump and pump and pump off data the majority of the time. So that is looking a little bit more favored, but just to be safe, we have to wait and see. So just be open-minded and watch your levels just to be safe. Now, how about for Tesla? What do I think about Tesla? Let me just say that Tesla's looking weak right now. The chart looks bearish because we keep getting hit with more and more and more bad news. Now, we had a symmetrical structure that could have led to a bounce based off technicals, but Tesla failed. And the reason it failed is because we got so much more bad news. That's the reason why it's very hard to predict what Tesla's going to do. Other than just kind of just saying the same thing that bad news is going to come, it's going to drop. But the reason why it's hard to predict is because bad news keeps coming over and over again. We can't always predict what the news is going to say. And that's why you want to be very careful with Tesla. So what was the bad news that came out for Tesla? The answer is yesterday we had Deutsche Bank come out and they said that they're going to be cutting their deliveries target for Tesla. Then today we had Wells Fargo that came out. They downgraded their price target on Tesla big time, saying that this thing could actually fall quite a bit. And they're saying to be very cautious of the stock. So when you have a big bank downgrading Tesla big time, saying it's going to fall to, below 150, that's a bad sign. And that's why Tesla sold off like this. There are other bad pieces of news, but I just want to focus on the main headlines. Right now, if Tesla tries to bounce thanks to PPI, you're going to be watching a break of 170 and then 172. If we're bearish and Tesla continues to sink, we're going to be sinking all the way down towards 165, in my opinion, if not 162. And there's also room for downside to go all the way down to the 150s if we keep on going down this trend. Now, Tesla, from a technical standpoint, let's just ignore PPI and everything else like that. It looks bearish. It looks like it's going to drop lower. This chart is just continuing to lose support over and over again. It failed at this 172 key support level and also at 170. So the chart looks bearish to me, not looking the best, and I favor the bears more on it. I'm just going to be blunt and simple from there. Onto the QQQ. Now, this is looking not the best. There is a possible slanted head and shoulders, but I would not solely trade based off that because these head and shoulders formations are used as traps, especially as of recently. Now, the bulls are going to argue we have a nice double bottom like formation. This is forming like a W, and the QQQ is going to push up to 444 plus. That's what the bulls will argue if we break 442. The bears are going to say that, hey, it might pop, and if we lose 440, this thing could drop all the way down, not just to 438, but also possibly 436 tomorrow because of a hot PPI. It all depends on PPI. The chart on the QQ is showing some weakness. However, it's looking weaker than SPY, so just be very, very careful on it. I just want to warn you to be careful. We're trying to hold the 54-hour EMA, basically. That's going to be right over here at 440. If we lose that, it's going to sink lower. We're nearing a bearish PPO crossover. We're looking a little bit weaker than SPY, so it does favor bears somewhat more, but I'm not going to say anything with high conviction until I see the data, guys. That's my honest view. I'm going to wait and see. I'm also not holding too many positions overnight. I'm just waiting to see how it goes. For NVIDIA has been trying to push a little bit. It is starting to uptrend a bit, but we're barely holding 900. It's added support. It's very simple. If we get good data tomorrow, NVIDIA could bounce and start pushing back up to 925 plus to fill this imbalance. If we get good data from PPI and initial jobless claims, we could, if we get good data, we're going to push all the way up to the high levels. If we get bad data, if PPI is hot, If the numbers are not good, this could easily sink back down to 885, then all the way down to 870. What do I think is going to happen? Well, the chart is still on a slight uptrend. We're barely holding 190, so we're just waiting for the data to react. So we'll see what happens with this. As of right now, it's holding up well, but I'm really just open-minded right now in the middle with Nvidia. So just wait and see. Unlike Tesla, which was giving us like more clear signals, Apple is kind of looking weaker as well. We got a big rejection off bearish news today, and we're forming a bearish wedge. So this is looking weaker to me. If we're bullish, you want to see it break this high right here at 171.8. If we break that, then 172 plus is coming. If we lose 170.9, a bigger drop is going to be coming as well, all the way down towards 170. Now, in my opinion, the Apple chart is looking a bit more bearish from a technical standpoint. We have this nice distribution chart. You could see how they were basically getting ready to unload some shares up here, and this is what led to this sell-off down here. So it looks a bit more bearish. It looks to me like it might pop and then drop a little bit lower, but that's solely based off technicals. It also depends on the data coming out for tomorrow. With that being said, I went over the main 5 I typically go over. Let's just go over a few more real quick. For Rivian, looking at the chart, I just want to say that this is looking kind of weak to me. We're seeing some, excuse me, we're seeing a very, very mixed market. Some stocks look a little bit more bearish. Other ones are looking a bit more bullish. But Rivian, of all things, is looking a bit more bearish. This, to me, looks like it could sink a little bit lower towards this wick right over here around 11 flat. It's barely holding 1176, so technicals do look a bit more bearish. But technicals are not everything. It also depends on PPI. If we get a bounce, it's going to retest 12.14. If we're bearish, we're going to be sinking to 11.5. I do favor the bears somewhat more on the chart, but just to be safe, we'll wait and see how it goes. For SoFi, we're very indecisive right now. If we're bullish, you want to see it break 7.58. If we're bearish, you want to see it basically sink down to 7.19 and eventually 7. The chart is kind of indecisive, a little bit more bearish looking, so it does favor bears somewhat more. But just to be safe, we'll have to wait and see. ARM is looking bullish on the other hand. If we just trade based off technicals, 132.5 is going to be tested. If we break that, 134 is coming. If we're bearish, you want to see it reject and lose 130 and start sinking towards 127. Overall, I just want to say that ARM is looking more bullish from a technical standpoint. It does favor upside somewhat more. So we'll just have to see how this looks, in my opinion. But overall, even though this is looking a bit more bullish, and I do favor bulls on ARM, just to be safe, let's just wait and see how it goes. Supermicro is showing more life. I called yesterday that 1200 may be tested on Supermicro. That's exactly where we went to almost. We had 1198. So now we're at resistance. We'll have to see if we get a rejection. If it rejects, watch 1142. If it pushes higher, we could be, trying to come up to this imbalance all the way up towards 1210. It all depends on PPI, of course, but the chart is still on a very, very nice uptrend, still bullish looking. So we'll see if we get a turn or not, depending on PPI. It is still favoring bulls somewhat more. For PPI, not PPI, Palantir. Palantir, in my opinion, has 25.28 to be tested. If we break this, I think this imbalance will fill at 25.63. If we reject, we're going to come down to 24.35 again. It depends on PPI, but the chart does look a bit more bullish. It does favor 25.6 is likely coming. For the IWM Russell 2000, it's very flat, very sideways, not really doing a whole lot. But the chart is starting to favor bulls somewhat more, despite it being pretty flat. If we're bullish, you want to see it basically break past 206 and make its way up towards 207.5. For bearish, you want to see it lose 205.58 and come down to 205 flat, then start sinking. From a technical standpoint, it looks a bit more bullish. It looks like it could push a little higher, but just to be safe, we'll have to wait and see how it goes. For what else is there? Microsoft pushed all the way up to about 419. It's trying to hold right now. It's very indecisive. So it came down, it came back up, came down a bit, then came back up again in the after hours. So it's starting to hit some tough resistance. The closer we get to 420, the tougher resistance is going to be. If we're bullish, we're going to push up to 420. If we're bearish, 414 is going to be tested. If we lose that, 411 is next. I'm in the middle with this. It's very indecisive. It's just been going back and forth pretty much all day. So I'll just wait and see for now. For what else is there? We have AMD. I was hoping AMD would get a bounce, but we got some bad news. So that got in the way. We're looking a bit more bearish again. We failed to break this 20 EMA. I was saying that if we broke this, we'd turn bullish, but we failed to do so far. If we're bullish, we want to see it get back above 199 and then 200.94. If we break that, we're going to be pushing much higher to 208 plus. If we're bearish, we're going to be sinking all the way down to about 190, and eventually our next target is going to be down here at this 180 area. not 185, but I'm going to start off with this support right here around 187. So I think that the odds do favor this sinking more. It's looking more bearish. It got this big rejection. The technicals look weak. So I do favor the bears on AMD for the time being now. There's a big shift because of news. So it is what it is. The VIX is super indecisive on the 4-hour time frame. If we get a hot CPI, this thing could bounce to 14.28. If we get a cool not CPI, PPI, if you get a cool PPI, we're going to be sinking a little bit lower towards 13 flat. So we'll just have to see how it goes. Overall, it's still indecisive, just like the dollar. Completely indecisive. We have this little liquidity grab right here. If we're bullish, we want to see it break 102.9, start pushing to at least 103 plus. If we're bearish, you want to see it lose 102.6. I'm in the middle with the dollar. We'll just have to wait and see. Coinbase, in my opinion, it's very flat, completely flat. It's still barely shuffling around the 20 EMA. It's still indecisive. It's just been going back and forth all day. That's what makes it very difficult to predict. So if we're bullish, you want to see it basically hold above 252 and start pushing to 260 plus. If we're bearish, you want to see it kind of reject and lose 252 and start sinking to about 242. In my opinion, the chart is in the middle. It's actually on a slight downtrend, so there is a risk of it coming down lower, but this depends on PPI and other factors like that. Google did push to our target. It came very close to this. The chart is a little bit more bullish. If we keep going, this could uptrend a bit more and eventually make its way up to this imbalance. So I'm watching this 143.5 area. It does look like it's going to test that. It does favor bulls somewhat more based off technicals. So if we're bullish, after PPI, 143.5 is coming. If we're bearish, you want to see it lose 140 and come down to 138.82. My guts does tell me it's going to push a little bit higher. So it is looking a bit more bullish from a technical standpoint. Amazon's holding up decently so far. That's despite the fact that there was a head and shoulders. It's now showing a lot of life. It's trying to invalidate it. If we're bullish, you want to see it push to 178. If we're bearish, you want to see it basically sink to 175 and then 174.89. In my opinion, the chart looks bullish. It's been uptrending very nicely. It does favor potentially hitting 178 plus and eventually 180. So it looks bullish overall. For Meta, we're in the middle, kind of indecisive for today, completely flat, stuck between our EMAs. If we're bullish, you want to see it at least hold above 500. If we break that, 505 is coming. If we're bearish, you want to see it basically lose 494. If we lose that, 490 is coming, followed by these lower targets such as 484. In my opinion, the chart is indecisive, but it is favoring bears somewhat more right here. So it's looking a little bit more bearish, but I'm still going to be open-minded just to be safe. So watch which way it breaks between our EMAs. So honestly, guys, it is what it is. Sometimes there are going to be a couple of days where I have to tell you that SPY is looking very indecisive and you have to wait to see how data kind of like gives us a forecast. But the truth is, here's the truth. I did give you guys an analysis on Tesla saying it's looking bearish. I did tell you what Apple is looking like. And for most tickers out there, I told you that they're not looking as indecisive. Most of them are giving us directions right now. So I just want to focus on that for the time being, and then we'll see what happens with PPI. Anyways, I want to thank you all so much for listening. I really appreciate every single one of you so much. Have an absolutely incredible evening. Do what you have to do that's best for your own lives and your portfolios. I'll see you guys tomorrow before the market opens, right before PPI comes out. So get ready for that and we'll see what this causes. Thank you for listening. Have a great day and peace out.